So the necessary condition tell us the derivative of the gradient evaluate at the extremos should be equal to 0. This should be equal to 0. Now we are trying to evaluate the derivative for vectors. So for vectors, so here we define this u. So it's a vector derivative of vector by another vector with matrix calculus. In the matrix calculus, we make some simple definition. So you know, for the normal derivative, we define, for example, dx to dx, this should be equal to 1. So in the normal calculus. But what happens if we have the x to be a vector? So if x in a vector form, then what happens? So these are defined in matrix calculus. The definition is like this. So we evaluate in terms of vector. Here it should be, so we cannot define a vector in terms of vector. So these are not defined. Instead, we need to use a transpose. So if we have a transpose, we know that the u is a vector. So this u transpose will be a row vector. So this one will become a row vector. This one is defined to be a column vector. So if we define in this way, this will be equal to the identity matrix. You know, the identity matrix is similar to 1, with the same concept as 1. So by using this definition, we can solve the problem. So we evaluate this dj du. So this equal to, so I put the function at here. So in the first component, because there are two vectors, there are two variables to u, although they are the same vector, but one with transpose and the without transpose. But we need to apply the derivative twice to them separately with the same idea in the calculus. So we need to do something like this. Firstly, we apply this to the first component, and we put the other component here. So secondly, we apply this derivative to the second component. And I apply to this u. So the first one is applied to this u transpose. So this one is applied to u. So the h is simply a constant. So we know this will be equal to 0. So this equal to 0.
没有那个它有改车的我的语题。
So for the first one, this EU transpose, EU, we have defined this to be identity matrix. So this becomes identity
因为
matrix
它弄两个
multiplied by
是
F
一个前面是 U， 这个是 U。因为它的你看外面这里是有那个这边
plus the second part. So the second part we prepare simple mathematical tree.
它 UT。
So now we apply this U to another column vector. So we know this are not defined. So we need a simple mathematical tree. So before we apply the tree, let's check the dimension of this product. Dimension of this product. So we know the U. The U is defined by is a column vector. So we know this U, a column vector is 2 by 1. The U is defined by 2 by 1. So the U transpose is 1 by 2. So multiplied by this F. F is 2 by 2. Multiplied by this U is 2 by 1. Eventually, we know this product is a scalar. It's a scalar. So for a scalar, if we have a scalar, so for example, if we got a file, a scalar, we apply a transpose, this will be equal to the same. We still got the same scalar. So we use the idea and apply to this product. U, F, U, and we apply transpose to this product. The reason we want to apply this because we know once we apply transpose to this product, then the U transpose will become the first one because we will change the order of the product. We know this one will become U transpose, F transpose, and U. This one. When you apply a transpose to a product of the matrix, the order will be tested. So similarly, we can apply the same trick to here because we know this one is also a scalar. So the G transpose is 1 by 2. This U is 2 by 1. So it has a constant. That's a scalar. So we apply a transpose and here. So this is equal to, so the I is the identity matrix. That's equal to 1. So we know this is equal to F, U, and U plus this B, EU, and we have this U transpose F. So the F, because the F is simply a diagonal matrix. The F is simply a diagonal matrix. So we know the F transpose equal to F. So because the F is here, so we have this F transpose equal to F. So the F transpose is just equal to F and multiplied by U. And this plus EU, this is U transpose. So the G transpose and another transpose will become G itself. So now we almost get our solution. So we know the first one is MU plus this du transpose du. This is equal to identity matrix based on our definition. So we have our definition there. So this is equal to I multiplied by MU and plus. So we know this one is also identity matrix. Use identity matrix. So this become I multiplied by G. So we finally get our solution. It become 2F U plus B. So the necessary condition tell us this dj du evaluate at u equal to u star must be equal to 0. Must be equal to 0. And now we know this dj du equal to 2f u star. Let's put a star here plus g is equal to 0. So we have this 2f u star equal to minus g. So we can calculate this u star. U star equal to minus, so the 2 is divided by, both sides divided by 2, so this becomes a half, and this f inverse, and multiplied by g. So this equal to minus a half, so the f, we know the f is 4009 inverse multiplied by this g equal to minus 4 minus 12. So it's just a simple manipulation. So we know this minus can be cancelled. As I here, this 2 can be divided to components. This equal to 4009 multiplied by 26 inverse. So for the inverse of the general matrix is complicated, but for this diagonal matrix, that's simple. This is just equal to inverse of the diagonal elements. 1 divided by 4 is 0, 0, 1 divided by 9. So the first one is just 2 divided by 4, so it's a half. So the second one is 6 divided by 9. So it's 2 divided by 3. So now we have our U star. So now we have our solution from the necessary condition. So from the necessary condition, we have our U star equal to half 2 divided by 3. So we know the first one is U1, the second one is U2. This one is U1, this one is U2. So if we compare with the results that we obtained from the first method, so we know we get the same solution from necessary condition.
1 over 4.
In the necessary condition, in the first method, we got the same solution that half 2 divided by 3. So now we get the same solution, half 2 divided by 3.
听听刚刚以前是比较好。
So this is the first set of equations to evaluate the necessary condition. So from the necessary condition, we identify one potential solution with the extrema. But so far, we don't know whether this extrema is minimizing our mathematical solution. So if we evaluate, that means that if we evaluate the sufficient condition, so the sufficient condition is defined by, the sufficient condition is defined by this dA square du square. So it must be greater than 0 for this sufficient condition. So we need to evaluate the second derivative. So this dJ square du square. So it's defined by the equation that they apply the derivative twice. So for a scalar, if the u is a scalar, we know the second derivative just defined in this way. So we apply the first derivative and we make another one. So this will be the second derivative. But if the u is a vector, we know this dJ du will be a column vector. So this u is another column vector. So we know it's not defined. It's not defined as we discussed here. Not defined. So in matrix format, we need to apply a transpose right here. So it's just a mathematical definition. So this dJ du equal to 2f u square u plus g. So this equal to u, so 2u transpose f transpose plus the second one with the g transpose. Because the g is a constant, so we know this will be just equal to 0. So for the first one, we know this du transpose du. This will become identity matrix. So this becomes identity matrix. So this becomes 2 multiplied by identity matrix by f multiplied by f transpose multiplied by f transpose. So but we know the f transpose is just equal to f. So this is equal to 2f So 2 multiplied by f is 4009.
Great.
So we got 80080. So if we compare with our method, our first method, we know we get the same, we get exactly the same solution for the second derivative. So we got 80080. So the following work will be the same. So we need to justify whether this one is a positive definite, whether it's a positive definite or not. So for that, let's follow the method that we use to calculate eigenvalues. We evaluate the eigenvalues for this vector. So you need to evaluate the determinant. So you can calculate the two eigenvalues. So in this case, the two eigenvalues is given by 8 and 8. So we know both are positive. So the positive, both are greater than 0. So the matrix itself, is
Constant.
positive definite. Because this is positive definite, so we know you start with the right solution. Okay, so these are the two techniques to solve the same problem. So we see we get exactly the same result. So in summary, to solve the unconstrained optimization problem, we need to evaluate two sets of conditions. So the first set of condition is the necessary condition. The necessary condition, if the U of the control input is n-dimensional, if the control input is n-dimensional, so you need to evaluate this EJ, EU. So you know this will be n equations. So we got n equations right here. So n equations equal to 0. So n equations have n unknown. So you can determine these n unknowns by solving this equation. But the solution to this equation would be one of multiple points. Now multiple points. So all these points are the extremos. All the extremos. It could be a minimizing point, or could be a maximizing point, or could be an inflection point. So from the necessary condition, you evaluate a set of potential solutions. So the second step is to evaluate the sufficient conditions for these points one by one. So you need to check these points one by one. So for each point, if you have the second derivative to be a positive definite, so you know that point is a minimizing point. So these are the procedures to solve the unconstrained optimization problem. So the unconstrained optimization problem, is the simplest format. We don't have any conditions or any constraints on the control input. But typically in the real scenario, we always have some constraints. For example, your input must be within a range. Your input cannot be indefinitely large or indefinitely small. So typically you got a range. For example, for the acceleration, your acceleration must be within a range. So these are the motivations for us to discuss the second category of problems. So it's a constraint optimization problem. In the first 2 weeks, I made some slides, but from the comments from students, I think it's not quite effective. Not quite effective because some comments I used the slides and also made some handwriting notes at here, so it's a bit confusing. So later we will depend on the handwriting notes so that they can develop the complete story from the data. The constraint optimization problem can be formulated like this. So we still want to minimize some function. So we want to minimize scalar cost function with a set of control inputs. So the control input is also belong to a real n-dimensional space. So here, so far the problem has been the same as the unconstrained optimization problem. So we know this one is a scalar. And this U is a column vector, so it's U1, U2 up to UN. So it's n by 1 column vector. And all the control inputs are real. So I define this to be an n-dimensional real space. So far it's nothing new. But for the constraint optimization problem, this control input must satisfy some additional conditions or constraints. So it is subject to some additional constraints. So this additional constraints is given by a set of equations. So the f, let's use the f for general function. So the f for this u, this must be equal to 0. But if I write the condition in this way, here we just only one equation. But actually we can have multiple equations. So generally this will be a vector. And we have this f belong to, it's also real. So all these functions are real in the real space, but in the m-dimensional space. So that means here we got m equations. So you can think about we have f1 for this u equal to 0. We have f2, this u equal to 0, and up to f. have this set of this the meaning for this notation is like this. So each equation contains n unknowns. So we have n unknowns here. So this problem is a constraint optimization problem. But here, so far we only discussed equality constraint. It's the equality constraints. So later we will discuss another set of problems with inequality constraints. So we have, so from here we got n control input. So we have n control inputs and we have m constraints. M constraints. So generally we are required to satisfy the n is greater than m. So generally we need to satisfy this condition. So for the problem to be well defined. The reason for this is so here we have n control inputs, we have n unknown. But however, for example, and here we also have n constraints, we have n equations. So what happens if we have n equations for n unknowns? So for example, if we have n control inputs, or say n unknowns, and we have another m equal to n constraints. So the constraint equations. So that means the number of unknowns are equal to the number of equations. So you know in this case, we can actually directly solve the unknowns. So in this case, you know we can directly solve these unknowns from the equations. So it's not a minimizing problem. So we don't require to minimize anything because we already able to determine these unknowns from the constraint equations. So generally we are required to define this one. So for example, if we have n equal to 2, so we may only have this m equal to 0 or 1. So if m equal to 0 is unconstrained, so this will become an unconstrained problem. Unconstrained problem. So for 1, it will be a constraint problem with equality constraints. So how to approach the problem? So we know now the problem are different from the unconstrained problem. So the control inputs need to satisfy the additional conditions. So how to solve this problem? So to approach the problem, we use a simple example to illustrate. So we use an example to show how to illustrate the idea. So we define this J U equal to is a two-dimensional space. So it's U1 is a vector. So it's U1 square plus U2 square. It's not a vector. And we have the F U equal to this U1 plus U2 minus 1 equal to 0. So in this case, we know the control input. So the control input given by this U equal to U1, U2. And we have this N equal to 2. And we only got one constraint. We only got one constraint. So the M equal to 1. So in this case, we have the N is greater than M. So we know the problem is defined, is well defined. So for the two-dimensional problem, we know we can illustrate the problem in the plane. We can illustrate and show the problem. So I try to plot these two functions. So firstly, let's check what's the meaning of this constraint. So for the constraint, we know we have F equal to U1 plus U2 minus 1 equal to 0. So this is actually given by this U1 plus U2 equal to 1. So if we plot this in the plane of U1 and U2, so we know it's a linear relationship between U1 and U2. So you know this will be a line. So it will be a line. So for a line, we can determine this line by any 2 points. So for example, we set U1 equal to 0. U1 equal to 0, I can determine this U2 equal to 0, so it's 1 minus 0, so this is equal to 1. So now we can determine 1 point, the first point on this line. So it's given by this U1 equal to 0 and U2 equal to 1. So we know we got 1 point. We got 1 point right here. So it's U1 equal to 0 and U2 equal to 1. So this is the first point. To determine this line, we require another point. Another point is any point in this line. So to make it simple, we can try the U2 equal to 0. So what happens for U2 equal to 0? So the U2 equal to 0, we know U1 will be equal to 1 minus 0. So the U1 equal to 1. U1 equal to 1. So this point, we got another point. It's U2 equal to 0, but U1 equal to 1. So we have another point right here. So it's 1. Because we know the F, this F is just a straight line. Not a straight line. So we have 2 points. We know the line will be something like this. The line is just given by these 2 points. So this line is our f u equal to 0. F u equal to 0. So now, how to plot this cost function? So in your high school, you know if we define the x squared plus y squared equal to r squared. So it actually define a circle. So we know this define a circle. So actually, this cost function defines some circle on the space, on the 2-dimensional space. So if we don't have this constraint, if you want to minimize this problem, you know the solution will be u1 equal to u2 equal to 0. Because this one is a square, so it must be greater or equal to 0. So this one is also greater or equal to 0. So the minimum value for this one will be this equal to 0, this is 0, and the cost equal to 0. So it's equal to a point at here. If you increase the value of u1 and u2, so without the constraint, we know we got a point represent the solution. But this point is not on this line. So this point cannot satisfy this condition because we have 0, 0 is equal to -1. So it's not equal to 0. So this point is not on this line. So the 0, 0 is not the solution to this problem. You know the solution to this problem must satisfy the constraint. So that means the point must be on this line. So your solution to this problem must be on this line, and it will minimize this cost function. So we know the cost function represents some circles. So if you increase the u1 and u2, you can get another circle like this. So if you further increase the u1 and u2, so you will get another circle like this. So eventually you will get a circle just touch the line. So for example, you will get a circle like this. You will get a circle is just touch this line. So in this case, this means that this point satisfies the constraint. If you further increase u1 and u2, you will got 2 points. That satisfy the constraint. But however, when you put these 2 points into the cost function, it will definitely greater than this point. So we know the potential solution. The potential solution for this problem is actually given by this point. So this point satisfies the condition that the point is on this line, satisfy this constraint. And this point, so if you increase U1 and U2, the circle just touch the line at this particular point. So this will be the solution. So we know this is the solution to this problem. So this is the solution of U star. So if you decrease U1 and U2, if you decrease U1 and U2, you know there are no intersection points, so the constraint will not be satisfied. If you further increase U1 and U2, there are points satisfy the constraint, but however, it's greater than this space star. Greater than this space star. So this point, so if you calculate, if you can determine this point from the geometry of the circle and the line. So this can be determined by, so this equal to this U1 star, U2 star, so it's a half. So far, actually, you can determine this point from your high school knowledge and determine this point. But later, I will show you how can we solve this problem by using our techniques. So from the U1 star and U2 star, you can determine this space star. Space star equal to the half square plus a half square, so that's equal to a half. So we can solve this particular problem for the two-dimensional space by using this intuitive inspection. We are now interested in the property of this U star. So what are the property of the U star? So similar to the unconstrained problem. So what are the properties? What are the properties of this U star? So we know the properties will eventually lead to the solutions. So let's check the first derivative. Let's check the first derivative. So let's check the derivative of dj du. U equal to U star. So we know we have the function for the cost function. We have the function of j. So we can calculate this dj in terms of u, u1, u2, and evaluate the value at this particular point. So I just introduce another notation. So we know this defines the first derivative. The first derivative in physics means the gradient. So I just introduce another notation. Another notation, you just remember, is for this meaning. So this is the definition for this notation. So the gradient can be evaluated by, so this dj du so the dj du, we have this to be this du1 or u1 square plus u2 square So here we have the u2 for u1 square plus u2 square. This evaluate at u equal to u star. So this equal to, so the u2, so now we firstly evaluate the derivative by u1. So u2 is just constant, so this equal to 0. So this become 2u1. This become 2u1. So the second component, the u1 is equal to, it's constant. So the first one is equal to 0. So this one is just equal to 0, trying to 0. So we have this 2u2 for u equal to u star. So we know the u star equal to a half. So this equal to, so the u1 star equal to a half multiplied by 2 is given by 1. So this derivative of the cost function by the control input. So what about the derivative of f? So we know we use the delta f means the gradient of f. So the gradient of f is defined by df du for u equal to u star. So this is the definition for this notation. So this equal to, so this be u1 for the f equal to u1 plus u2 minus 1. So this be u2 u1 plus u2 minus 1. This evaluate at u equal to u star equal to a half. So we know this equal to, so the first one, this one is constant. So the u2 is also a constant. So you just do 1. So for the second component, u1 is constant, the 1 is constant, so it's equal to 1. So the delta G equal to 1, 1, so it's 2 components. You know the 2 components is actually a vector. So we can represent this 2 components by a vector. So this one is another vector. So we can represent the vector in this plot. So that means at this particular point, we can evaluate. So this equal to 1. This equal to 1. So we have a vector here. So it's given by this 1, 1. So these are delta G. So this vector, so we know this vector is delta G. So for the delta F, we got the same, we have the same vector. So it's actually also delta F. So it's 2 components. 2 components we can represent by a vector. if we have n components, we know we can represent the quantity at the vector in the n-dimensional space. So from here, we can see that actually we have delta G. In this special case, we have delta G equal to delta F. But in the general case, they are not equal. They are not equal, but instead, they are delta J is in parallel as delta F. So the representation of this is we can illustrate the idea in the two-dimensional space. So if we have a U1 and U2, so I just replot the vector. So it's a 1, 1, the vector like here. So it's a delta G. So the delta G is in parallel as delta F. It means that the delta F can be represented by delta G multiplied by a constant, by just a constant, another constant. So that means your delta F could be, so for example, could be a vector like this, could be a vector like this. So it's in the same vector representation, but in the same direction, but with different amplitude. So for the conventional, for the convention purpose, technically I put a minus at here. But you know this lambda is just a constant.
But it's not, they are, in a way, they are pointing to the same direction and they are pointing to infinity. They don't use it.
But you don't use the delta F because they are on the x-axis. It's different.
So in summary, what we have discussed today is for the unconstrained problem. For the unconstrained problem, we find the property. We find the property of the U star. So the property of this U star is this U star must satisfy this condition. So for the one constraint, I will say for a two-dimensional problem. The two-dimensional problem. So for the two-dimensional problem, this U star must satisfy this particular condition. So the delta F and delta G is in the same vector. So we can also represent like this. So the delta G equal to minus lambda delta F. So the F is just a constant. So this one is just a constant. And for the delta G, the meaning for delta G is a dj du evaluated at u equal to u star. So the delta F, the meaning of this representation is df du evaluated at u equal to u star. Okay, so in the next lecture I will show you how to use this property to solve this problem.